we're still seeing 200, 300% returns this year. So there are, she mentioned IPOs, it's initial public offerings. These are new companies that would have been listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange since 2022. And we're seeing some stocks, he mentioned Dollar Financial Services as well. That company would have been listed at $1 earlier this year, and it's now over $3, about $3.50, $3.80. So you're still seeing opportunities existing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Hello, Throppers, and for those joining for the first time, a special welcome to you. My name is Winthrop Wellington, and I am the host of On Deck with Throp, where we have meaningful conversations with people from all over the world, all about Jamaica. And in this clip, which is from my annual Jamaica Investment Conference, ThropX 2022, we are joined by some esteemed panelists in the financial markets here in Jamaica from two separate financial institutions, NCB Capital Markets and also Sagicor Investments. And these experts are being led and guided by the expertise of Amashika Lorne, who is the host of this panel. And she asks many different questions, all the way from the basics of how do you invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange if you're living abroad, to why Jamaica has been the #1 performing stock exchange in the world for multiple years, recognized by Bloomberg Financial, and all the way up to different financial strategies as well. So if you're interested in getting more information even outside of this video, please feel free to reach out to the experts that we have on this panel. Their contact information is in the description below. And without further ado, please enjoy this very informative conversation on the Jamaica Stock Exchange by two sets of great panelists. Enjoy.
So the first thing I want somebody to respond to me on is, we saw the news articles, the ministers of governments were saying, hey, this is the best performing stock market in the world. What does that actually mean? Or what did that actually mean? You want to give me an overview of what that meant?
Okay, thank you.
Go again.
Hello? Okay, so to answer that question, I know when we look in the past from 2015 to say 2019, Jamaica actually was the top performing stock market, had the top performing stock exchange in the world 2 years. However, the pandemic happened in 2020, and what we saw was there was a bit of instability in the market, and we saw a lot of retail investors coming out and starting to invest. Check. Okay, and starting to invest. So this happened both locally here in Jamaica as well as internationally. So on a junior market, for example, this is where the activity really is happening, and it's actually outpacing the main market in terms of performance, because these retail investors are the ones who are driving demand, and we have a lot of smaller companies coming into the junior market, so there are a lot of IPOs happening. There was Dollar, there was 1&1, there was Pertree, there was Fiberglass, and we saw that these retail investors were gravitating towards those stocks because of the momentum in terms of the short-term gains. So yeah.
Check.
Have anything you want to say, Lennox? Hold on 1 second.
So Lennox from Sagicor.
Yes. So I just want to add, we have two main markets. We have the main market and the junior market. So we tend to see the bigger companies on the main market. So since the pandemic, they haven't been doing so well, but there is still a lot of value there. So if you invest in for the long term, there is a great opportunity on the main market, because a lot of their stock price is depressed. They are down 50%. To where they were pre-pandemic. But however, there are still good companies that we all know, the Grace Kennedy, the NCB, the Sagicor. There are even some that you don't know, like a Panjam, but they hold a lot of real estate in Jamaica. So when in Kingston, Montego Bay, a lot of the buildings you see, they are owned by Panjam. So due to the uncertainty in the economy, a lot of investor would have pulled out of the market over the past 2 years. So we see where stock prices are down significantly. But I would say if you have an investment horizon like for the next 3 to 5 years, now would be a great time to get in at these depressed prices. All right. Thanks.
Okay, morning everyone. So just to add to that, he mentioned the Jamaica Stock Exchange and moving, right? But what you want to know is that there is still opportunities in the market. Yes, we've established that. So even though we're not seeing the 700%, 800% returns that you would have seen in 2018, we're still seeing 200, 300% returns this year. So there are, she mentioned IPOs, it's initial public offerings. These are new companies that would have been listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange since 2022. And we're seeing some stocks, he mentioned Dollar Financial Services as well. That company would have been listed at $1 earlier this year, and it's now over $3, about $3.50, $3.80. So you're still seeing opportunities existing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange in 2022, right? So opportunities are still there.
All right. Of course, a lot of our viewers, for example, and guests in the audience, they know what it's like to be participating in stock exchanges overseas. So why is ours a place that they should be looking to?
Right, so what I would say is, let me just start off by saying that our market doesn't operate as the normal market operates. I will say that. And anyone who's following the Jamaica Stock Exchange understands that. So what you're used to in terms of how fundamentals, how the company is performing, I'll use NCB, for example. Years ago, I would have seen where NCB had phenomenal returns in terms of their performance, but the stock price moved downwards. So it doesn't normally happen as we would want it to happen, or it's supposed to happen in theory. But the Jamaican market, there are lots of opportunities, as he mentioned, real estate as well. And we have several stocks on the Jamaica Stock Exchange where these companies invest by extension in real estate. And because our real estate market is doing so well, then naturally these companies are poised to do well as well.
So earlier, Lennox would have mentioned that there's a difference. You have the main market, different from the junior market. And we've been seeing a lot of companies do that IPO listing on the junior market. If somebody wanted to invest, what are some of the critical questions you would ask them to determine which kind of company they should go for in terms of putting their money in?
Okay, so let me start off. So when you're looking at your objectives for investment, you definitely want to see what your time horizon is, how long you want to invest, because typically equities are considered to be risky investments. So you need a longer time frame to maneuver the volatility or the ups and downs in the market. So time horizon is the most important. Secondly, would be your risk appetite. Can you actually manage the risk that is associated with investing in the stock market? So I would say you also need to make sure that you're diversified. You want to have cash investments, a bit of fixed income, and then equity. So you also want to look at what your allocation is like in terms of how you're invested in the different asset classes, whether it be stocks, bonds, repurchase agreements. So those are some of the things that you definitely need to look at when you're investing. Particularly when I speak to diversification, we have over 100 stocks listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and they're listed across different sectors. So you can go into tourism, the financial services, manufacturing, distribution. Is it that you want dividend? Do you want income from your stock holdings? You might want to look at Carreras. Is it that you just want capital gains? You want to buy it for $1, sell it for $3? You might look at a different type of stock. Is it that you want something that you know over the long term it will be more stable? You're going to look at something like an NCB or Sagicor or Panjam, for example, because these are strong companies. GK, Grace Kennedy, they've been around, they have the performance, and you would look at stuff like that for your portfolio.
I know from time to time a prospectus is sent out for everybody to kind of read, and you have analysts who do the numbers. But if you were to guide somebody, like what are some of the critical things we should look for in that prospectus document before we decide that we're going to buy stocks in that company? Lennox, you want to chime in?
Okay. All right. So my first thing when I'm telling people to buy stocks, to always try to buy a company that you know about. So for example, Grace Kennedy, it's been around for forever. And you see the products in the supermarket, so that's the first thing you look for in the prospectus.
The confidence is there.
Yes. So an overview of the company, what you're buying, that's the basic stuff. So not everyone will understand the financial part of the prospectus, but you're looking for, first I said, the company overview. You look at the directors, look at their experience, because you're buying into a company. They'll be the one who running the company on a day-to-day basis. So you want people who are competent, expert in the areas. So you look at that, then you look at the financials. So you'd always want a company that is profitable. So you look at the PE is a metric that they tend to use. So that's the price to earning ratio. So that's basically the EPS divided by the price divided by the EPS. So the price that they're listing at and the earnings per share. So you give a simple multiple. So if you're buying, if you have a EPS of say 10, it's that the price is the earnings per share, the price is 10 times the earnings per share. And that's a simple metric. Then when you look at the balance sheet, you want a company that has cash on it, especially in a time like now where interest rate is high and companies may have issue refinancing debt. So if you have cash is king. You can always do whatever you want. And we're in a segment now where we're seeing a lot of consolidation. So a smaller company may not able to go through the pandemic. It's easier for a company with cash to say, let us do a merger or buy them out and stuff like that. So when you look on the balance sheet, you want to say cash, basically. So that's what you really look for in a prospectus.
But what about giving a new company or a little company a chance? You have these fintechs coming up, these new brilliant ideas.
Yes, so for a newer company, the management team will be really important because they're a startup, there's no track record. So it's really, you're betting on the managers of the company. So for newer startup, you tend to focus a lot on what they're even getting into the sector and see, is that a sector that 5 years from now will be a big sector which they can benefit, or even if they're getting into a sector, who else is in that sector, what market share they can get, and stuff like that. But for startup, it's really the management team because that's the only thing, their experience is going to drive the growth of the company in the future.
All right, so in terms of actually investing, so I've been reading, I see different prospectuses coming out and, going through the numbers as much as I can. How can somebody actually open an account and get started in this process? How much pieces of documents you need, Miss NCB?
Don't worry about the pieces of documents. That's not critical right now. There is technology at NCB Capital Markets that you can use to your advantage. So you can go on your phone, you can do that right now, download our Wealth app, and you can open the account on your phone. So in addition, if it's not working out where you're able to do it on the phone, simply things that you would have on you at any given point in time, your ID, your TRN, proof of your address, which could be on your ID, and proof of income. Of course, we need to establish where these monies came from. So that is simply your pay slip, a job letter, whatever documentation. If you get paid through an account, then a statement from that account can easily be used as proof of address as well. Proof of income, I should say.
So while I might be a Jamaican, there might be people on our live stream who are not. How do you validate and verify them?
They would still have the same criteria. So they'd have the proof of address. They'd mostly get paid. So your pay slip from, if you're in the diaspora, that's fine. If it is you have your financial, you would have done your income. You have a document that you do. You file every year. So the persons who are overseas, you do your filing. But most persons are employed. If you're retired, that's fine. You'd still have your bank statement, which validates that you're getting a pension through that account. So that is fine, just the same. And your ID. Everyone in the diaspora still has an ID, whether your passport, your driver's license, or your national ID. So it's the same thing that we require. And you all have proof of address as well.
How long does it take to actually get verified and set up, generally, across the various financial institutions?
It depends on the financial institution, but it doesn't normally take long once you have all that is required, which is why even if you're going to go on the app, for example, we're going to tell you upfront what it is that you need. So you'd have those at hand. So the process is not that long. It can be minutes and it can be days, depending on what you would have brought into the company.
So earlier you mentioned that NCB Capital Markets, you have an app.
Yes.
I'm
We
going to ask
do have an
Sagicor for
app,
so tell me
and
why
you
your app
can-
is the #1 app.
My app is the #1. You can do every single thing on the app. Once you open your account, you're able to trade. Most companies use what is called you go through the Jamaica Stock Exchange website. They use the JTrader. We have our own app. You can still use the JTrader, but we have our app that allows you to trade, that allows you to track what is happening on the stock exchange. You can see the history of the stocks. Do I need to go on?
Well, okay, Sagicor,
Well,
come
not
good.
to be outdone. So Sagicor, we have our platform eInvest. So this is used for initial public offerings, otherwise known as IPOs. So you can go online and apply for the IPOs that you see there. We have what we call Investor Core. It's not well known by a lot of our clients. However, it has this unique feature which allows you to input each of your accounts. So let us say you have an account at NCB, you have a stock brokerage at Sagicor, Beharie, wherever it is, you can actually track all your stocks there. You input the information and you're able to see it there. We also have access to JTrader Pro, and we have among the lowest fees on the market for when you're trading, which is 50 basis points. So that's a plus. So yes, we're not to be outdone.
Well, you mentioned fees. Let's talk a little bit about those fees, because I mean, I already want to use as much of my money towards the actual stock. So tell me about the fees that are being charged.
Sure. So most companies will charge more if it is that you're asking the company or the advisor to place the order for you. So if you send an email to say, I want to buy some Wisinga stock, it's usually across the board 2%. Most companies will charge that. But if you're trading on JTrader Pro or through our platform at NCB Capital Markets, it's 0.75 or 0.5%. That's the average in the industry. So it's way more advantageous for you to place your order yourself online.
So, we have two types of trades. So we have broker assisted and online trading. So as she would have mentioned, for broker assisted, it's a little bit more expensive, but also we don't necessarily, our fees can be negotiable. So if you're a client coming in and you're doing a lot of transaction, we may use that to give you a discount. And on the JTrader Pro, so you can enter the trade by yourself, and Sagicor has the lowest fee, as Mel would have mentioned. So that's 0.5% or 50 basis points. Also, when you're trading, there's a few fees that the Jamaica Stock Exchange collect. So you have the CES fee, which is 32 basis points, and you have the JCSD trading fee, which is 3 basis points. And then you pay GCTs, but just on those fees. So it's not net. Like all the others fees are calculated based on the total value of the trade. So you're looking, if you're doing online, you're looking like you're paying around a 1%, a little bit below a 1%, but it varies depending on the relationship you have with us. So for Sagicor, we have long-lasting customers who do large volume. They can get significantly reduced commission.
Now, the next question I want to ask is, what is the role of a brokerage in in helping a company to list? So is it that I can always trust any company that lists with NCB Capital Markets or any company that lists with Sagicor? I know they were scrutinized to the T. What can I expect for the role of the brokerage in these listings?
Okay, so let me take on this one first. So one of the benefits of investing with Sagicor Investments is we have a robust research team as well as our capital markets team, and they're the ones that actually bring companies to the market. The most recent one being One-on-One that literally just listed recently.
For people who don't know what One-on-One is or what they do,
they're an educational company. So they facilitate online education pretty much, right? And they have a lot of linkages with the diaspora and Jamaica as well, and a lot of companies locally. But back to your question. So in terms of our capital markets team, what they would look at is, and if you are a company that you want to list and you don't have all that information in terms of your financials isn't looking well, at a fee, of course, we can actually help you to create your financial statements as well as to help you to set up a proper board to facilitate you being listed on the stock exchange. We definitely don't bring any companies in the market that we have not done our research on or due diligence. And the financials is important, especially for an existing company that's been around for a while. They may be private, but they want to become public. We definitely assist with that. And if they're brand new, again, we would help with the cash flow projections. We would help with selecting a board, because it's important who is providing the advice to the company, that there are people who are experienced and there are people who the public will trust and have confidence in. So those are some of the things that we would look at.
Right. So similar to Sagicor at NCB Capital Markets, we have a team of experts. So the research team will work with you. And as you mentioned, new persons, we're all about the growth and development of the economy. So we're willing to work with the new players in the market, assist them, as you mentioned, work with the management team and work with them in terms of their financials and bringing them up to par so that they can be at a standard where they can be listed. So if we're bringing you to the market, you're not just coming to the market like that. We would have done our due diligence, and we ensure that when you're coming to the market, you are going to be performing well, especially if you go through NCB Capital Markets. So most of the IPOs, if you notice, the ones that do well in Jamaica would have been listed through us, and we might have some co-brokers, but we're normally the lead broker.
Let's talk a little bit about the co-broker and lead broker.
Right. So the company might choose a main person that you're working with, and then you will have other persons, other brokers that you might bring along because you want to have a greater reach. So NCB Capital Markets, again, has a wide range of reach. It's the biggest company in Jamaica right now. So being number one, the average person has an NCB account. So if you have an NCB account, by extension, it's going to be easier for you to have an investment account, and then for you to be much easier, as I said. Everyone wants convenience. So you want to be in a position where an IPO comes out, you just go onto our platform and you're buying this stock through us. And then we will say, okay, let's work with other persons so you can have a greater reach. So the other brokers will come on board.
But in cases like that, are the fees increased?
That's the beauty about an IPO or the initial public offering. When you're coming for the first time, the fees are very insignificant. So all the fees that he would have mentioned are reduced. So you're only paying a flat fee for an IPO, $172.50. That's a little over $1 US. Oh, that's all you're paying. So regardless of the amount, it is always, always good, once you've done your due diligence and read through the prospectus, to invest in IPOs. That's why most Jamaicans are getting into the IPO space now. Even if they don't have stocks, regularly they haven't bought stocks before, they look for when the IPOs are coming, invest in the IPOs because they want to, especially if you're spending $10 million. We mentioned between 1% and 2% fees. So if you have to pay 1 or 2% of 10 million, and you're not paying that when you do 10 million on an IPO, if you're lucky and you get at all of that, if it's not oversubscribed, you're paying a flat fee of $172.50. That's ridiculous. You can't beat that.
Well, ridiculous.
That's low.
Great for some other people. Let's talk about the reporting mechanisms for these companies that are listing. So I'm not in Jamaica. I'm not reading the papers every day or hearing the news. I'm overseas, and I want to ensure that a company that I've invested in, I know what's going on and I can feel confident. What are some of the requirements from the JSE in terms of how companies are supposed to report?
Right. So, the Jamaica Stock Exchange, as you said, being number one for a few years pre-COVID, they do their due diligence as well. So they ensure that the companies are doing or keeping up to standard, and they are maintaining a certain record keeping. What I would say is that it's not a case where you don't have access to the information, because most of the brokerage houses will communicate with you. So they will send you updates on what is happening on the stock exchange, what is happening with these individual companies, so you're kept abreast. So
JSE does that?
The brokerage houses. Remember, you have to have a broker for you to be purchasing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, right? So you have to first have a brokerage account and then you invest. That's how you invest. Sure.
So for our international investors, the Jamaica Stock Exchange itself, you can actually go on their website, type in whichever stock you own, and they actually post the financials there. They post the audited financials for the entire year, plus they also post the unaudited quarterly financials. So you can actually keep yourself abreast of what is happening in the company, how their financials are looking, if their cash flow is getting better, if their revenue is getting better, if their profits getting better. That information would be on the Jamaica Stock Exchange website. And if you signed up for the J Trader Pro platform, which allows you to trade from anywhere in the world at any time, it will also give you access to the information on the stocks as well. So you'll be able to click onto them and get their financials and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so just let me shed a little bit more light on what Mel said. So all listed companies have to produce unaudited financial statement for each quarter. So 4 to 5 days after the end of the quarter, that's the due date. So currently we are in earning seasons for companies with a quarter end on September. And then after the year end, you have 90 days to publish the audited financial statements. So there's always information on the company and the JC, because when you invest, it's a financial statement on the news you use as your guide, because you're not there each day in the company understanding. And also, if a company is doing any major transaction, they normally has to announce it on the JC prior to. So for example, if they're doing an acquisition and you think this will benefit the company significantly, they'll announce it so you can get a chance to go in and buy. So recently, I know Separate Limited, they acquire a company out of Trinidad and Tobago, Ace Bryden and Son Limited. So they would have published advisory stating that we're entering into an agreement with this company to buy them at X price. And they give a little update on the company, their financial statements and stuff, so you know what they're buying and what you're getting into. Also, if any
Check.
Hello? Hey.
Keep talking, let me see.
Also, if any insider in the company trades stocks, if they buy or sell, they have to publish that on the JC. So there's a lot of information that you can use as tools to invest. That's it.
In terms of, being,
Sorry. So I'm so happy that you mentioned Seprod earlier. So at this point in time at NCB Capital Markets, we actually have a bond, a separate bond that is yielding, and I'll say to you, we're talking about stocks, but it's a bond at 11.5% and 12, that's for 3 years, and 12.25%, that's for 5 years. So Seprod is doing big things, and persons are, can relate to this company, and we have a bond right now that's available to investors.
well, as you mentioned, bonds. Is bonds something you would more steer your overseas or international clients towards?
As Melissa mentioned earlier, a diversified portfolio is critical for all clients. So having bonds, having some unit trust, having the stocks in your portfolio, depending on your risk appetite, depending on your time horizon, and depending on your age, of course, you'd want to look at those factors. But definitely having a bond is a part of balancing your portfolio. A diversified portfolio will assist you to achieve your financial objective.
All right. One more.
So recently, yesterday, the annual inflation came out for America, and it's actually lower. So it's 7.7, I believe. And it was anticipated to be much higher. So what we saw happening was that the stock market actually rallied overseas and bond yields came off. And this is part of the reason why we always emphasize being strategic, especially in a market that's so uncertain, and having some defense mechanisms in your portfolio. So bonds and repurchase agreements or fixed deposits can provide you with some defense in your portfolio. Also, when we look domestically, we see where interest rates have been going up. Our inflation is 9.3, I believe, our annual inflation as at September figures. But what I've noted when you look at our policy rate being 6.5, you look at our treasury yields from 90 days to a year being between 7.85 to 8.4 being the average yield, you see that rates are actually increasing. So it's good to have some of that in your portfolio as the market continues to be volatile, so that what you can do is you can take your time and average down the cost when you're purchasing stocks. So let us say, for example, you believe that NCB stock is going to do extremely well. You don't want to put in a lump sum right away, given that the market is still fluctuating. What you do is you purchase, say, 10,000 units now, and then purchase another 10,000 next month. So that way you average down your cost. But in the interim, you would have your funds being invested in, say, a short-term repurchase agreement or a unit trust. So it's earning there, but you're still taking advantage of what's happening in the stock market.
Now, in terms of being a shareholder and knowing exactly what's going on in the company, sometimes you see these AGMs happening and, of course, the board is putting something forward. And let's say I don't agree. How much importance do you feel these companies place on having the input of shareholders?
I think they place a lot of importance on it, and that is why if you are a shareholder, you actually get an invitation to attend these meetings and you can actually voice your concerns. This is your opportunity to ask questions about the company, what they're doing, as well as to make your own suggestions. So I think having that avenue definitely says that they care about your opinion and they want your input.
So if there's somebody who is saying, listen, I think I still want to go to a different stock market as opposed to the Jamaican stock market, who's going to give me I want each of you to give me that closing sentence to say, listen, this is why you need to invest on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Okay.
I'll make Lennox go last.
All right, so I started off earlier by stating, in 2015 to 2019, our performance was so good that we had a #1 stock exchange in the world 2 years. A lot of these stocks presently, especially on the main market, they're undervalued. What that means when you look at, say, for example, a Panjam or a Grace Kennedy, they're selling way below their pre-pandemic highs. So it's a buying opportunity for you because we believe when the market rebounds, it's going to rebound stronger. And the market is very cyclical. So you have highs and lows, but what we've noticed is the trend is when the highs come, they tend to go higher and higher and higher. So if you look at a price trend for a stock, you'll notice this up and down movement based on what's happening in the market. But even though it's going up and down, it's still going up. So there are lots of opportunities here on the Jamaica Stock Exchange for sure, with over 100 stocks on our market, with every sector pretty much listed on the stock exchange. You can't say, oh, I don't like manufacturing companies that are not investing, or I don't like financial companies that are not investing. You have options. And if it is that you want something that's going to give you dividends, then we have options for that. If you're just looking at capital gains, you have options for that. So definitely invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange because there's definitely room for you to make funds.
All right, so you said it. #1, according to Bloomberg, and I mean, of course, the research wasn't done locally. We're talking about Bloomberg, where we all can relate to Bloomberg, #1 in the world. So even though the past doesn't predict the future, and I always like to say that, there is still opportunity on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, right? So there are several stocks, as Melissa mentioned, that are poised for growth in the future. The important thing is to ensure that you're not thinking short term, and also to have a balanced portfolio. So you're not going to have all your eggs, as we say in Jamaica, invested in one basket. So it simply means don't invest all the funds that you have in the Jamaica Stock Exchange. But at the same time, there is an opportunity for you to invest in many different sectors. So she mentioned we have manufacturing, we have financials, we have distribution, we have so many different sectors. The real estate market, I'm sure a lot of you here today are here to hear about the real estate investment market. So there are stocks, by extension, on the Jamaica Stock Exchange who will then invest in real estate. Several different companies. We have First Rock, we have Panjam, as was mentioned before. Several companies in Jamaica who invest in real estate. That's their core business. So what you want to do is to balance the portfolio. Even if you're investing in the Jamaica Stock Exchange, you're still having a balanced portfolio where you're doing some financials. She mentioned NCB, we have Sagicor. We have most of the banks in Jamaica are listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So we have a Wisynco that I'm sure all of you can relate to. The offerings are wide. We have separate. So we have many different companies. If you really want some dividends, you want to be buying Carreras. So they're the number one in terms of dividend payments in Jamaica. So having a balanced portfolio is critical, and you can invest on the Jamaica Stock Exchange and still have that balance that you're looking for. So the convenience, I would say, is very important. You can be in the diaspora and you can still invest in the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Gone are the days when you had to be thinking of all the requirements and all the paperwork. We've made the process somewhat easier, so you can still invest. No excuse, all right?
Before you pass the mic to Lennox, on that point about the requirements, if somebody is non-Jamaican, do they need a TRN?
No, you'll just use the equivalent. So if you're in Canada, it's the NI, National Insurance, that you'd use. If you're in the US, it's the Social Security number. So it's whatever is the equivalent that you'd be using.
All right. Lennox? If I'm apprehensive and I don't see the, I'm just not confident, tell me now, ready?
So one other thing with stock market is that it tends to grow with the economy. So Jamaica, prior to the early 2010, we had high interest rates. So there wasn't a lot of business, like new business or development in business. People just put the money on CD. So interest rate came down, I think, starting around 2010. So we see from there the market starting to going up. So the benefit is that we are not a mature market. So a lot of our companies that are listing, they are young and they have a lot of room to grow. So for example, we see like a Wisynco. They have been around forever, but due to high interest rate, they choose not to list. But now when they list now, they're still growing significantly. So it's the growth prospect you want, is that we see the economy over the next 10 years growing a lot, and the stock market will also grow along with the economy. So if you look at the US, there tends to be a lot of big companies where there are not a lot of growth unless they're going in the tech sector, which is risky. But Jamaica, you have solid companies that still have a lot of room to grow. So I'm saying that if you're investing in Jamaica, invest on the growth potential. And we're seeing data coming out of the IMF, World Bank, that Jamaica is poised to grow in the next couple of years. So I'm saying if you have cash, put it in the market. If you can leave it for 5 to 10 years, when you come back, you're going to see significant growth in your investment.
Thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to open the floor to some questions. So, Mr. Gentleman in his Jamaica shirt, let's go. Or you could stand.
Can everybody hear me? So my question is, how do I evaluate? I have to connect with a brokerage firm. What's the criteria for determining what brokerage firm you want to go with?
But you don't have to choose just one. You could go with any or all.
That's correct. That's true.
So that's why earlier, you know, they both have these apps that will help. And I said to them both, tell me why your app is better than the other one. So if you want them to recap that app and their customer service experience, if you want to give them both 30 seconds on the spot. Let's go, NCB Capital Markets.
So what you need to do to choose, let me just speak broadly and agree with you. You can invest with multiple equity accounts. I have multiple equity accounts in Jamaica. What you really want to do is to look for the history in terms of the company. NCB Capital Markets is #1 in Jamaica, right? It's the largest financial company in the market. We also have a team of experts. So our financial advisors have the experience in the industry. I like to say that you don't want to be with persons who are necessarily new in the industry. You want to be dealing with somebody who has history, who knows the market, who understands the market. That's important. So the team that is going to be working with you, or your licensed financial advisor, have to stress that the person must be licensed who's working with you. But once you're working with a brokerage company, you are licensed automatically, right? And then the access to the information is critical. So we have the team of experts, or a research team, who will be providing that to you. Once you have an account, you're going to be getting an email with which stocks to buy, when to sell. We're working with you. We're holding your hands at NCB Capital Markets. And also, what is very, very important is then the platforms. How is it that you're going to be able to maneuver? So in addition to JTrader, we have our own platform. So you can choose in between. What do I want to use today to trade? I can use JTrader. I can use my NCB Cap Markets app. So the convenience is there when you're choosing NCB Capital Markets.
I'm going to echo. I'm going to sound like I'm repeating, but like NCB, Sagicor Investments Jamaica, we have a long history in Jamaica. A lot of persons will be more familiar with our Sagicor Life side, but we've been around for a very, very long time. We have a solid reputation in the industry, and we do also have the required license from the Financial Service Commission. And we have a plethora of wealth advisors, wealth managers who have experience and the knowledge to guide you on your investment journey. And we are constantly investing in upgrading our technology to allow you to use our applications to access your stock brokerage investments that you would have with us, as well as to get access to information that can guide you in how you go about making your investments. Our research team is very, very robust, and they always put out picks and pans, which pretty much give you some stocks that we think you should buy, hold, or sell, as well as we will just give you a little write-up on companies so you know what's happening out there. And I can say for our wealth advisors and wealth managers that we have meetings internally that we constantly provide them with update and knowledge, so that when they speak to you, they're speaking from a point of knowledge and experience with what's happening right now.
And you'll also see their announcements all the time as they poach the best from different fields to their different departments, whether it's marketing, their new chief of finance. Yeah, so we see their reports as well.
And just to add, I think when you're in the stock market, liquidity is a big importance of who you want to go in with. So if you're doing large volumes, you want to go with a broker that can fill those orders. And I can say year to date, Sagicor is the #1 stockbroker. We traded the most volumes on the market. So that coming to us, there's a high possibility that you'll get it at a lower price, because we tend to do more trade in the market. We are the largest liquidity provider on the stock exchange. So that's an additional benefit, along with the customer service. Our research team, they're constantly doing research to update you on a day-to-day basis, just to, because we are in a market that's moving. Like interest rate up, everything is changing. So what we know, the research team, we meet each day just to discuss the market, and then we send out that to our clients, because information, and when trading, you need information. And the sooner you get the information, the quicker you can trade, you can make a decision. And I said, Sagicor is best at doing that.
All right, any satisfied? We have another question. You want to stand there? Okay.
Is it as easy to buy and sell your stocks? And the second question is, the separate bond got my attention, so I just wanted to know a little bit more about that. Like, is that a guaranteed, the interest rate, is it guaranteed over the 3 years? And then the ease with which you could buy and sell and trade on a daily basis?
Okay, so the buying and selling is pretty simple. So as I mentioned, liquidity. So some stocks traded more frequent than other stocks. So if you have a stock that a Sagicor, a GK, they're traded a lot. So once you put up that order, and it would fill instantaneously. So once there's if you're buying or selling, once there's someone on the opposite side, it will fill. If you're doing a broker assisted, you'd have to call your rep or send an email, and within a couple minutes, once you get that email, we verify that that it's a correct email, the instruction came from you, the order will be filled within a couple minutes. So more than likely, I'll say within an hour, if you're sending it to us, but if you're doing it on JTrader Pro, once you enter the order, it's filled. No, similar to the selling.
The second part is about the separate bond. And
Right. Let me just, in addition to that, you can actually see on JTrader what is happening in the queue. So you can see the lineup. How many persons are there selling? How many persons are there buying? So you can know what is going to happen. So if I try to buy 10,000 worth, there's somebody there on this side who's willing to sell 10,000. So I can see that right away. So you can know what you can help that to gauge your price that you're going to put at. So the second part of the second question is in terms of separate. Usually with investments, I like to say there are different levels. So you'll say low risk, moderate, and high risk. Personally, I don't necessarily say guaranteed. The rate on a bond, all things being equal, is supposed to be paid every quarter. So this bond, it's going to be paying you interest every 3 months. And that is going to be paid to you, of course, net of tax. But usually, again, because of the company that we're dealing with, Seprod, they've had several bonds over the years, not defaulted, not had any issues with late payments and so on, so you have nothing to worry about. But I'm just saying personally, I just don't say that because I've seen strong companies with bonds and we've seen issues with them in the past. So that's just a personal thing. But persons will tend to say bonds are guaranteed and they'll be paying you interest every month, every quarter.
So just to add, one of the reasons why bonds are considered less risky than equity, if once you buy a bond, if a company should default, so you have secure and you have unsecured bond. So some bond, they'll secure it by the building. So if the company should default, the bond holders will literally get the building and you can sell it to recoup your cash. So that's why it's less risky. So as you said, it's not guaranteed, but if it should default, you'll get back your cash before equity holders. So let's say it's less riskier than equities.
all right. So if there are, we'll take the last question for this segment.
Hi, I'm Yvette from London. You've mentioned people in the diaspora a few times, and I'm a typical of that. If I invested in the Jamaica Stock Exchange and I was to get dividends every 3 months, would I get that back in English pounds? Would it be that kind of equivalent in terms of currency? Yeah.
So the companies tend to pay dividend in the currency that they are listed in. So you'll get Jamaican, but what we can do at Sagicor is that we could reach out to the bank, have it converted to English pound. So we'll extend you the rate that we're converting that. And once you're good with that, we can do. And also for dividends, there is a mandate that you can put on your account and you can give specific instruction. So you can go to that particular bank account and stuff like that. So we don't necessarily pay in different currency, but we at the bank, because Sagicor is a financial group, so it's insurance, investment, and we also have a bank, we have insurance as well. So we'll just reach out to someone at the bank and saying, yeah, we're getting USD or we're getting JMD for this particular client, but they want English pound, and we'll convert it and send you the English pound.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just, no, right. So let me just say, of course, we're coming up to the end, but NCB Capital Markets, we wouldn't allow you to just leave like that. So I have one goodie. Of
Money?
course, yes, we're all about money, right? So
Wow,
we
nice.
have to give you a start. And the start that we're giving you today is a gift voucher for the person who can answer this question. So I'm sure everyone is listening carefully to the presentation. It's going to be very, very easy. The question is, everybody hear the question? I was just joking. All right, so the question is, tell me 2 of the reasons you should invest on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Simple, easy. Yes, sir. Was helping you.
It's the best performing stock exchange in the world for the last few years. And if you invest in that market, it's a great possibility that you're going to reap the benefits of that.
In the short term or in the long term? Let me just.
In the short
I want
term
to give it
and in
praise,
the long term.
All right, so
In both.
Just a correction, as we said, the was. We want to be clear. We're all over
And
the world.
you're with NCB,
So,
correct?
Yes.
Michael Lichin told me that, so I know what I'm talking about.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael Lichin, right. So
Right.
pre-2018 though. So we want to just be clear.
All right.
That's when we got it from Bloomberg. But yes,
Okay.
you are correct. Thank you very much. And I will give you your price in a little bit. But maybe somebody has a better answer. Oh no. She's not good. Oh, she's a nice, happy camper. Okay. I know. Oh my goodness. I think he has a question.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. If a person is a U.S. citizen or resident and invests in the market here and a sum greater than $50,000 or $50,000, what is the reporting requiremts to the United States?
Very, very good question. So, of course, we know the arrangement with the U.S. If it is that they're asking for information on you, John Brown, of course, we have to provide that information to them. So, yes. But on a case-by-case basis, you would have to, for filing purposes, check with your individual tax person in the country, in the U.S., for example. So because, each state is going to be different. So we always say speak with your tax advisor.
Answer. So we don't offer legal or accounting advice. So what I would say is in your filing, you should speak with your accountant and make sure that you're filing everything that you should file.
You just watched a clip from ThropX 2022. I hope you enjoyed. If you want to see more, click right here or somewhere on the screen. See you in the next one.